This is my new baby, and if you ask me what I like about it, it's the fact that it's got no belts, just variable speed from 100 to 5,000 with 8 of favourite speeds that you can save. I didn't like the metal hand wheel, so I've made a wooden one for it because I can't work without a wooden hand wheel. I've resprayed the outrigger from my old DVR and fixed that onto it, and I didn't like the silly little plastic handles that came with it, so I've cut those off and I've made some new ones in African ebony. And now I'm ready to go. And my first project is going to be this piece of ash. It's got a really deep ingrown bark. I'm not really sure whether it's the faceplate that's holding it together, but if I get lucky and get this off the lathe in one piece, then it could be really pretty. So I'll fit that up now and we'll have a go. Swap, safety glasses, silly hat. I've got it running at about 270 at the moment, 270 RPM. I don't know what the peripheral speed of that is, but it's quite quick. And it's really out of balance. But I need a serious cut here because there's a big lump missing from it. Chop, 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 chop. This is going to take me a while to do this, so I should come back when I've done a bit more. Okay, I'm getting there. This bark inclusion comes right through here, but it looks like it might hold together. I'm working my way out a bit at a time because I'm worried this might buckle while I'm doing it. It's bound to move. There's so much tension in this piece of wood. And for the main cuts, I use the gouge in the standard way, just bevel rubbing. I still can't get the speed up on this, and then when I've got it roughly to shape, I like to put the gouge on its back, and I've got a freshly sharpened edge there, but this time, although I'm still rubbing the bevel, I've actually got the cutting edge meeting the wood before the bevel, as opposed to after. Where I got this fissure in the piece of wood, that helps to produce a better cut. When I can, I really like to get onto a little 1/4 inch gouge for really fine cuts. And I'm just taking a whisker off here because the grain is really quite difficult. This is a piece of ash, incidentally. And when I reach that point, you can know me now, I'm a bit of a nut for shear scraping. So I just love this tool. So I'm going left-handed here because my workshop's not big enough to go right-handed and stand over there. But this really does help clean the wood up. You can hear that bark fissure there just hitting the cutting edge. So I shall continue like that until I get to the outside. Then I'll cut my recess for the chuck. I'm just using a standard set of power grip jaws, which I tend to use for most of my hollowing work, and whether you have Record or Patriot or Nova, they're all much the same, and they grip in a 4-inch hole. This piece of wood varies in thickness just here from 1.5 inches to just here at 2.5, so it's going to be out of balance for a long time until I start to get some shape onto the front of it. So leaving to it, I'm going to finish off just here, and then I'm going to power sand it. I won't put any finish on at this point. That will take place over a few days once I've finished it. I just need to get on with it now. So every time I look at this, I see another little bit that needs some attention. I've power sanded it and hand sanded it, and I kind of work with the grain for any little blemishes. It's never perfect, but I do my best. This is actually going to go on the wall as a wall decoration when I finished it, so only the spiders will see it, but the back of it. but they got really good eyes apparently. What I did was before I sanded it, I did the rim and the boss for the chuck grip last, because I'm expecting this to move, and at least if I get this in the centre and the outside concentric, it should be fairly concentric when I turn it round. But as I said earlier, it's 1.5 inches thick just here and 2.5 thick there, so it's going to be a bit of fun to start with. The chuck fits in here, expands into this recess. I'm going to leave the recess on there. I'm not going to get into a whole debate about that. And so, oh, and the shape of it, this is roughly what I'm going for. I've done a little curve on the inside of this, and I'm going to go for something like this with a little feature just here. I may put one there, I'm not sure. I have thought about putting a perfectly round bead there, but I'm not sure it'll go, so I'll probably put a quirk, and I may put a quirk here, or otherwise I might just end it with a very clean line. Just depends how well I can turn this with this rough stuff that's here. So give me a few minutes, I'll put this into the chuck and then I'll start to turn it. Let's leave the faceplate on until I know I've got it fixed in the chuck properly. People often, it seems to me, want to use much longer screws than necessary on faceplates. These only protrude into the wood about 3/4 of an inch. This wood was about 3 inches thick when I started and really buckled, and I had it with 4 screws. I would have had it with 3, but I was pretty sure that one of them went into, there we go, it goes into a bit of bark, so that's really loose, so I put an extra one in somewhere. Where is it? I've already taken it out, but I put an extra one in. I'm actually using Robinson screws. You can use them time and again. I might get some of these one day and put them in the shop. They're square headed and you can use and use and use them. I've had these since about 1990. I'm down to just a few of them now, so I need to buy some new ones one of these days. I'll just get the tool rest in position. This is pretty well all over the place. Something I've done with this lathe, and I've done it with other lathes, I reinforce the tool rest as much as I can. I've just got a bit of wood that I kick underneath there, just to give it some extra rigidity. I didn't really think this through. I should have put my lathe further over that way. I might move it another time, but once I start to cut towards the centre, as you should be going with the grain, I'm going to be cutting left-handed, which and I'm just as bad left-handed as I am right-handed, so it doesn't make it. Let's put my safety glasses on. Woo, baby, this is going left-handed. I've got my glove on the wrong hand now. I only put that on there. So my manicurist doesn't criticise me. Delicate hands like I've got. If you can learn to turn left and right handed, it's a huge advantage, especially on spindle work. I'll just show you what this looks like in a minute because it's rough. I'll just stop that. It's probably going to take me half an hour to get this cleaned off because I've just got to chop away. All I really have to do now is just chop away all the bits that don't look like the design I came up with, and hopefully it'll be the platter I'm hoping for. So that's all I'm doing is contacting just there at the moment. This bark is going to give me a problem the whole time because as this comes around, it's going to be chipping into there, and I'm going to have to do it really carefully. But have faith, and just hope the chuck holds, and hope the piece of wood stays in one piece. Otherwise, we've got a little peanut bowl in there somewhere, and a beer mat in there. So I'll carry on with this, and then we'll see how far I get. I've roughed it down. this bit of bark here, it's a bit flexible here. I'm hoping it will stay together. I've left the bulk of the weight in the middle because that's the bit I want to keep stable. This is liable to move a bit, so I've roughed this into shape, and this is where my dome's going to be, so I need to get some wood out from here to make space for that. I'm now doing most of this left-handed, and I've gone onto a shorter handled gouge just so that I can keep it away on my bench. I've really got to move this lathe. This is going to be a chop cut for the whole piece because that bark inclusion there is not going to give me a clean cut at any time. So it's going to be an interference cut. This bit should be easy, it's just a question of making a dish. I'm switching over now to a gouge with swept back wings. I don't use these too much. I reckon that 90% of people can probably turn 90% of the pieces they want to make with a gouge ground at 45 degrees, which is the standard grind they arrive with. But these are useful. They're useful for a pull cut. They're useful for doing fine details. But if you catch a crab with these, you really catch a crab because you've got a long edge here that's liable to catch up, and the great long fingernails profiles on these can be really difficult. But for doing the detail I want to do on this, this will be the easiest gouge. Now, I want to go left-handed for this because of the direction I've got to go in, from larger to smaller, but you'll not see what I'm doing. So I'm going to go right-handed for a part of it. And I'm going to take half up here. I'll stop there now and I'll take a piece off this one here. And this I can go right or left-handed. I'm not going to try and do the whole curve in one go. I'll just do a bit at a time. I want to come back to these three lines in the middle here gradually. I've got to get in there left-handed in a second. I mentioned earlier about learning to turn left-handed. Of course, if you are left-handed, perhaps learn to turn right-handed as well. I'm not ambidextrous, but I have kind of learnt to use both hands on the lathe. I'm going to stop and have a look at that. I've been having the lathe up to 465 revs. I've tried it a bit faster, but the lathe tried walking around the workshop. You can shake any lathe with enough imbalance on it. I mean, you can shake a car for the sake of a tiny piece of lead to balance the wheels. So it's not impossible to. I've got quite a grainy, liney colour. I've got to really clean that up. I've got a crack here that I'm just going to ignore. It doesn't go right through. And I've just got to really concentrate on getting a better finish than that because I'm bouncing so much off this bark as it comes round. So I'm going to turn the gouge on its back now and use just a tiny part of it to one side because I want the wood to meet the cutting edge first. This is a cut that's kind of fraught with danger in as much as that you can very easily have it catch the whole of the bevel. So I'm just going to really carefully use just a tiny portion of the cutting edge. I don't think I'll attend to that detail later. this is a tough one. This is tough. So I think I need to concentrate on this. Not be talking while I'm doing it. Just sharpen my gouge up. I'm switching to my favourite little 1/4 inch gouge now. Just to try and get in here and I'm going with a really small gouge because I can just make a really fine cut, reduce the amount of bounce that that bark is causing. This doesn't have the nose to clean up the bottom of that bead there. I would like to go left-handed now, but I've got a mobile phone in my right ear. Right, I'm going to come around here now. This will without a doubt be the noisiest platter I've ever turned. Chop, 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 chop. Well, I'm getting there. I'm not happy with the finish I got at the moment. I've got to really improve upon that, but I just need to concentrate. I need to spend an hour just really carefully cutting that. I'm going to try and get the speed up a little, which will give me more cuts per inch of movement, but the lathe might start to follow me around. Doesn't like it. 490. Once I finish the rim, I'll be okay, I think. And I dig a bit more out from in here. I like to turn everything as fast as I can, as fast as it will go, as long as it's securely mounted and not walking the lathe around the workshop. And because I just get more cuts per inch of movement. But the imbalance of this piece just will not let me. So I'm going to concentrate now, and when you come back I should have got this piece finished and be starting to hollow out the centre. I've finished this bit here. I shear scraped just here, which is the only way I could think of coping and making this a little bit flat. So I ran it up here, and then I came around here, altered the blade side and came around here. Then I changed the blade and came from the other direction. Although I got a crack here, which often I would put a bit of zap or a bit of CA in, I'm going to ignore that. I might even clean that out with a scalpel so it stays there as a feature. I've got a bit of work to do on the sanding, but the easy bit now is just to hollow this bit out. The piece that makes me nervous is the fact I can read my speed dial through this crack, and it runs right the way through, so that'll be fun. I won't be able to power sand this because this will just wreck the arbor, so I'm going to turn this as carefully as I can now. What I'm doing really here is just turning a bowl within a bowl until I come back out, and each time I'll be going a little bit deeper until I meet the little feature I put just by that big bead there. As big as a cut as I dare take, because can almost feel that tick-up flexing. So I'll continue with this until I work my way back, and then we'll do the finishing cuts. And we'll be down to a bit of sanding. It occurred to me yesterday that if I had a floor mounted tool rest, I could slide the whole bed assembly along, the whole headstock assembly along the bed, and turn it over there. But I don't. So it looks like I've got to move the bench and the dog's bed and everything, and change this workshop for doing big stuff. I've worked my way back now. Put my gouge on its back now, and just to attend to this bit here. So the flute is up. What I mean by on its back is the flute's up in the air. I need to concentrate a little now. I can't stop that bounce where that bark is, so I really and now I've conventional again. I've got a slight bulge in the centre there, which doesn't bother me because I'm going to put the gouge on its back now. Making sure I cut right to the centre. I'm going to try and do a baby gouge on this now, see if I can improve the cut slightly. Probably a little thin gouge like this is allowed to flex under the weight of any imbalance, and I really can't get the tool rest any closer. Like it there. looks like a ploughed field. I'm not going to reach in and stop it. I've got a hand wheel at the back here, but I'm not going to touch the piece. Look where I've had the tool rest touching there, that won't be a problem. But that's not so bad. I can shear scrape that now. I've got to just move my tool rest. I think I'll come out a bit with it. Just in the right direction would help. Just want to make room for the RS200 in there. Just going to alter this cutter slightly. It's an angle of about 45 degrees, and I'm really cutting with the burr. I'm actually going against the grain here, but this cuts so finely, you can almost get away with it. Because there's no bevel rubbing, it's just the cutting edge versus the wood as it comes down. So where this comes to here, I may not get a perfect meeting here with this bit on earlier. It says you can't get fine shavings off a scraper. I'll go the other way now. I'll just stop that and show what kind of finish it gives. Not too bad. That will stand up. I've got some little marks there, but I can get rid of those. I really can't power sand. I could probably power sand that bit if necessary, but this bit here, if I do, what will happen is as this comes around, this will stay flat, but this edge here will fold in, and it just looks like a half sucked sweet. Just all smooth and doesn't look right. So I want to keep a crisp edge there. So I shall use a sanding block on that. I've got a little patch here I need to attend to. So I need to concentrate now and work at getting a finish on this. Then I shall spend an hour or so, I reckon, sanding it. Well, I finished sanding it. This piece has taken me nearly 4 hours, and over half of that time I spent sanding it because I just couldn't do it with a power sander. So I spent ages sanding it by hand. I had it revolving at about 190 revs, but this moved about 8 mil while I was turning the centre of this piece. And I decided now not to use a hard wax oil, but to use Libron finishing oil. I would have used a hard wax oil, but that requires quite a bit of buffing, and I don't fancy power buffing this. Whereas I've been using the Libron finishing oil for probably 30 years now, and I should give it at least 4 coats. I have given some pieces as many as 10 coats. So I'm just going to start by just getting some wax on that bark there. Don't tell my wife where you've seen her basting brush, please. It's perfect for this. This is the best bit of all. Bringing the wood to life. You watch when I start putting some on there with a cloth in a second. I shall obviously do both sides of it, but some of this will leak through to the back, so I'll get that. The whole trick with this finishing oil is to really give the piece of wood as much oil as it will take. Then walk away for 10 minutes, then come back and buff it dry. And on subsequent days, and I try and leave at least overnight or 12 hours between coats. The tin says 5 hours. But all you need then to do with subsequent coats is just make it look wet. Here it comes. I'm going to try and get some into that little feature there. This actually shows up the faults rather than disguising them. I'm never really happy with what I make, so why should I start being happy now? There's always room for improvement. Next piece. I should probably go over this time after time until I think it won't take any more. I used a scalpel on that crack there just to take the feathers out. You may have noticed I've also moved the bed of the lathe, the headstock of the lathe along the bed, just to give myself more access and save me sitting in the chuck cupboard. So, a bit more on that bark. I'm really going to soak it into this little feature here, so what runs off I can rub into the rest of it. If you're using one of these white spirit based products, apparently the cloth you use, if left tightly screwed up, can spontaneously combust. So I always keep mine in a sweet jar or something. I've tried loads of times to get them to spontaneously combust, but I can't. But the day that I'm not trying, I'll end up with dry hot workshop perhaps. So it's fairly early in the morning. I'll leave this all day, come back in 12 hours time and give it another coat, and then tomorrow morning I'll only rub it down between coats if it feels it needs it. It generally doesn't. Most of the roughness you get on a piece after you've done this job is just a result of all the little dust motes falling out of the air and landing on the work, which is why I blew it all out last night with a compressor and left it overnight so that every little bit was settled out, I hope. Here it is, 4 days and 7 coats of oil later. I don't plan to do anything else to this except rub it by hand with some burnishing cream to take out the slight smears that are on there. I'll work with the grain, and that's all I will do. I won't wax it. That's what I like about this oil, is that it does seem to have a long-lasting finish. This is one I made 16 years ago. It had 10 coats of oil. I was sort of religiously giving them all 10 coats in those days. It's had no wax on it. It's darkened. It's the same tin, but it's darkened a bit with age, as you would expect. But it's a finish that really lasts. So that's it. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. Hope it wasn't as much of a challenge to watch it as it was for me to turn it. Thank you.